What's one of the cases that obviously every single one of them has meaning? There's a victim, there's a victim's family and things like that, but kind of one of the ones that just, I don't know if I used a word that hits home more, or you and your partners had more drive on. It was more of the community was a part of it, something like that just really stuck out to you even looking back now.
Well, Sean, that's a great question, and I would answer it this way.
Again, and I don't want to cut you. Again, I don't want to diminish any of them. Every single one of them.
So I think you'll understand my answer then with what you just said. What I realized in that 23 years of working homicides, it didn't make any difference if you're a crack whore in the ditch, or if you're a socialite living in River Oaks, which is the exclusive section of Houston. That person was someone to somebody. They mattered. So the drive to close those cases, find the right person who's done the wrong thing, and bring about a measure of justice, and hopefully some peace for the families of the victims, was the drive. So there are certain cases that stuck to me.
Of course.
Only because of the nature of the case itself. But in terms of a drive to solve, I hit every case determined that I was going to close it. Every one of them. I don't care who it was.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because it's obviously there's, whether it be in the media or the social media, and obviously policing such a huge topic. And I've tried to explain that to people. I'm like, we in the gang unit that I was in, you and I don't know each other. Today's our first day meeting each other. I was in the gang unit for 14 years in Tulsa as a supervisor for that unit. Obviously, we worked all the gang-related shootings. We worked hand-in-hand with our homicide unit on gang-related murders and things like that. And I try to explain to people, it's like, listen, we don't care. That call comes in and we get up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go out there and work. We work that thing just as hard. If it's a shooting, we work it just as hard for someone in this community as we do in someone on the other side of the city. It's the same thing. Obviously, if it comes to closure or arrests are made and convictions, part of it's part of the court system. The other parts is how cooperative are our victims or our witnesses. That's the deciding factor. It's not going to be you or me that's, man, I don't care about this case. I'm not working it any more difficult. But during my career, there was one deal. It was on a Sunday morning. This is still when the bubble caprices were around, and those are those were a great bad guy.
We called them Shamus.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing when I came on. Everybody. I mean, I started in obviously later in my career than you, but I came on in '97, and you had guys that were still driving the old, early '80 Cutlasses and the box Caprices and all that fun stuff. But there had been a shooting the night before that we had gotten called out about. Some gangsters shot another rival gangs. Guy got shot. Nobody's cooperative. Fast forward to the next morning, and one of these the suspects from the shooting the night before, rival gang, were in a baby blue bubble Caprice, a Shamu type Caprice. Well, these gang members that were neighborhood Crips see who they think's a Hoover Crip, and it turns out to be 4 kids that are actually coming from church, and they're just driving a baby blue Caprice that matched the description of the night before.
Wow.
So they see these kids up at a convenience store, close to one of these neighborhood Crips homeboys' houses, and they run over there and get a chopper. They grab a rifle and then pull up next to it, and the guy leans out the window and just starts unloading. And one guy loses an eye, another guy's paralyzed, one guy's killed, another guy's shot through the lungs, and one guy somehow makes himself tiny and gets down between the seat and underneath, the floorboard, and somehow doesn't catch around. And it was just a horrific case. We get called in at like 10 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, and we've worked every single case the same and still did up until I retired. But these were kids that were coming home from church.
Right.
They were just mistaken for rival gang members, and we ended up getting everybody that day. We recovered the rifle. We ended up getting, catching a guy up short, and it took a short time later, within the week or two or something like that, us and the fugitive warrant squad, we tracked down the actual trigger man that was involved in that.
What was the age of the shooters?
I remember his name was Vincent AJ, or I'm sorry, not Vincent AJ. His street name was Venom. Was this kid's name? He was,
How old was
18, maybe.
So
Something
he's
like
right
that.
in the same age.
Same
range
age
as
group.
people
They were
who
all the
shot.
same age group. Yeah. And he was convicted, and he's in prison for the rest of his life. But it's one of those. It was early on in my time in the gang unit. And when I retired last year, it's still one of those cases that just always stuck out. And I can remember probably almost every single shooting, murder case that we went out on. But those are the ones that just when you look back on a career and you go, man, I'm glad that the guys that I worked around with chased, these guys responsible for that.
Well, the work in those gang cases are always a challenge. Only because of the culture within the gangs. It's, you don't talk to the police and all that stuff.
A lot of them, they do.
But, but what I have found is you treat everybody with dignity and respect. And there's 3 things we all have in common that allows, at least in my career, and this is what I teach, allows us to do that. And it crosses all boundaries of race, creed, color, religion, culture. It doesn't make any difference what flavor you are. If we remember that 3 things we all have in common, even guys from Arkansas.
Jesus.
We all want to be loved, we all want to be respected, and we all want to take care of those who love and respect us. We just make different choices about how we accomplish those 3 things.
Yeah, spot on.
And that gives you the ability to anybody that will apply that gives you the ability to speak to, in our context, in that interview room, with somebody that you have absolutely zero in common with. And I know some of the gang guys. We had a guy named D-Loke. They've always got the street vernacular, right?
Be stupid.
Right, exactly.
Be stupid. I mean, the do wrong, do dumb. I mean, you name it.
D-Loke was
street
actually
names.
He was a Houston turd. He was an OG, the YOG, the Young Original Gangsta, for the 5 Deuce Hoover Crips, and they'd been involved in a deal where they were going to do a punishment thing on one of their guys, and blah blah blah, and they ended up killing some people. But anyway, long story short, I had him up in the interview room, and treating him with dignity and respect, and so forth and so on, and I asked him. Names are important, so I asked him, what do you want me to call you? And he said D-Loke was fine. That was fine. And I said, well, I appreciate that. And I said, I'll be right back, and I'm gonna come in here and talk to you for a little bit. And he said to me, he said, well, Mr. Waters, he said, I know you were going to come and talk to me. And I know I was going to have to come down here and talk to you because you're Homicide. You're like above HPD.
Yep.
And I said, looked at him, and I said, true that.
Yep.
Then I walked out, and I came back in. We had a real nice conversation. So, again, you treat people with dignity and respect, and you'd be amazed at the communication and relationship you can have with them.
I was actually just here at CrimeCon. Somebody asked that question. I've been asked it before, ended up in doing some of this media stuff. And weren't you ever worried about when you were out on the streets dealing with people? And I said, man, listen, if you're a cop, there's this weird, I guess, mutual respect probably a lot of people don't understand between police and gangsters. There really is. And it's like, man, if you're not beating guys up, if you're not stealing dope or money from them, if you're not planting dope on them, it's the game. They understand, hey, they're bad guys. They know we're doing our job. They're doing their thing. It's the cat and mouse game. And it's like, as long as you don't belittle them when you talk to them, you don't talk about their dead homeboys, in that way. When you have to sit down in an interrogation room, or you catch them up short, even something as simple as you stop them on a car stop and it's an ex-con you catch with a gun, and he's like, you know what, I've already been to prison. I don't want to do this shit again. And, as long as because you interact with a lot of the same guys. Your witness to one murder is going to be a suspect in another, or a victim in another. So you get to know a lot of these type of people. But just as you're talking about, as long as you treat these guys well, it's beneficial at some point down the road, more times than not.
Oh, it is. Absolutely is.
Yeah, and listen, I also want to say, I know I said the murder suspect, his name was Venom. I'm blank on his real name. That's his street name. I mentioned a Vincent AJ. He was actually the victim of a homicide, a gang-related deal. So I just don't want to make sure there's any confusion there.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting to me about all this is the integrity that you guys are showing, and I think the public needs to understand that. As a police officer, there's a level of integrity that you have to have, and that integrity kind of, I guess the best way to define integrity is what you do when nobody's looking, right? Like you go into an interview room, nobody's in there. There may be a camera on or something, but you go in there with that respect. You go in there and you treat your suspect with the integrity that you have and expect them to return that to you. Usually you get pretty good results. Obviously, yours is just 96%. I mean, you could have done a little bit better, but that's kind of the way it works.
We tried.
And I think the public misses that. I think they miss that in order to wear a badge, you have to have a level of integrity.
Well, you know, the cops are held to a higher standard as they should be.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely. No qualms.
Me too, as a nurse, hell yeah.
No qualms about that. And I can tell you that the average citizen comes in contact with a police officer, with law enforcement in some capacity, like 2.5 times in their lifetime. I don't know where that half comes from. That's a short police officer. I'm not sure what that is all about. But about 2.5 times in their lifetime. And their feelings or understandings or opinions about law enforcement are going to be based
off of that,
primarily on that, but then the rest of that influence is going to come from where? What they see on television. And that's going to come from television shows, from media, whatever that is going to be. And we all know, especially in today's world, the skewed view of police officers that is based on a false narrative is really, really upsetting. And these guys and gals that are coming into law enforcement now, God bless them. Mm-hmm. If this had been the state of affairs when I was a cop, started being a cop 35, 38, 36 years ago, I wouldn't have joined up for that kind of stuff. But,
yeah.
You know, it's a they're being called and they're coming forward and they're doing it. Although the recruiting efforts around the country they suck. I mean, it's just terrible. And then you get the guys that just come in and want to want a paycheck. And those are the guys, you know, those are the paper cops that, you know, they don't have any passion about this. I think,
no, they don't.
They're not.
I mean, hell, listen, there's some social media accounts out there that, you know, that I follow, police related, post a lot of good stuff. They'll find a body cam, you know, a dash cam video of an incident that's happened, and they kind of break it down, looking at the tactics that were used and the safety and stuff like that. But, you know, there's another one that's out there right now. It's called Survive Policing. And I don't know who's running it, but this guy was clearly a cop in a decent agency. He knew the job, you know, the right way. And he kind of calls out these cops that are on here doing fucking TikTok videos, you know, while they're at work. And that's what I'm saying. It's like they're just all about, they want to be social media influencers as police. And it's like, man. It is. And thank you. That's exactly it. He calls them out on it, and, you know, and it's you know, and I know they talk about interacting with the public. It's like, man, that's not what being a cop is being on social media, posting pictures of yourself all the time, doing that stuff.
That's self-promotion.
No, that's exactly what it is.
Well, it's idiotic.
It is, and it's, you know, and then
it diminishes the professionalism of the badge.
I've looked at some of the people that are doing this, and, you know, you can see their patch in it, and you'll find out what agency they're working for, and it's some rinky-dink agency that has no crime, and it's like, come on, man.